She stood barefoot at the edge of the dusty road, clutching a small plastic bag that held everything she owned. A crumpled blouse, a bar of soap, and a worn-out photo of her mother. The afternoon sun beat down on her, but she didn't flinch. She was used to the heat, used to the waiting. At just 21, Amara had already lived a lifetime of struggle. Born in a forgotten village, raised by her grandmother after her parents disappeared from her life, Amara had never known luxury, only survival. So when Mr. Harold pulled up in that shiny black car, everything changed. He was old enough to be her grandfather, but his presence was heavy. Calm, sure, like he knew exactly what he wanted. And strangely, what he wanted was her. Amara couldn't understand it. She wasn't beautiful in the way magazines showed, and she certainly had nothing to offer a man like him. But he kept coming back. Every Sunday after church, there he was, sitting quietly in the back row, waiting. His smile always kind. His words always soft. "Marry me," he said one day, his voice low and steady. "I can give you a better life. No tricks, no games." Amara laughed at first, thought it was a joke, but Harold wasn't joking. The villagers whispered. Some said he was lonely. Others said he was dying and wanted someone to care for him. And some warned her, said no man gives without wanting something back, especially not one like him. Wealthy, alone, white, almost 70, it didn't make sense. But Amara thought about the small hut she shared with her grandmother, the leaking roof, the nights they went to sleep hungry. She thought about the way her grandmother's hands shook when she tried to light the fire, about how tired she always looked. So she said yes. The wedding was quiet. No guests from Harold's side, just a notary and 2 strangers who signed as witnesses. He gave her a simple gold ring, no diamonds, no fuss. She wore a borrowed dress and walked barefoot down a dirt path instead of an aisle. But Harold didn't seem to mind. In fact, he looked happy, genuinely. The next day, he brought her to the city. To his house, a large white building with clean floors, too many rooms and mirrors so spotless she could see herself clearer than she ever had. It was the first time in her life she'd slept on a bed that didn't creak. Ate food she didn't have to cook over firewood. But something about the house felt too perfect, too quiet. There were no photos on the walls, no signs of family, no stories, just Harold and his slow smile. He didn't ask much of her. In fact, he barely spoke after the first few days. Just sipped his tea, stared out the window, and sometimes, late at night, locked himself in his study for hours. Amara heard him murmuring once, but couldn't make out the words. 10 days passed. And on the 10th night, everything changed. She woke to a strange sound. A kind of soft dragging, followed by a thud. It was coming from downstairs. Heart racing, Amara stepped out of bed and crept toward the staircase. The house, usually so still, felt different now, like it was holding its breath. She tiptoed down the stairs, past the tall grandfather clock, past the locked door of the study. But the study wasn't locked tonight. The door was slightly open. She peeked in and saw something she couldn't make sense of. Harold was sitting at his desk, surrounded by old papers, worn photographs, and a box. A small velvet-lined box. In it, she saw a necklace. Not just any necklace, but one she recognized. One that had belonged to her mother. She stepped into the room before she could stop herself. "Where did you get that?" Harold turned slowly. His eyes met hers, not with surprise, but with a kind of tired sadness. "I've been waiting for you to ask," he said quietly. Her heart pounded. "That's my mother's." "How do you have it?" There was a pause, a long one. Then Harold whispered words that would flip her world upside down. Words that made her question everything she thought she knew about her family and about him. But what he said next, that's something she never could have seen coming. Harold didn't speak right away. He just looked at Amara, eyes soft, almost watery, like he was carrying a weight that had been pressing on him for years. The room was still. Amara stood frozen, her breath shaky, staring at the necklace in the velvet box. The one her mother used to wear every day before she disappeared. Her fingers trembled as she stepped closer. "I knew your mother," Harold finally said, voice low and fragile, as if the truth itself hurt to speak. "A long time ago, before either of us became who we are now." Amara blinked, trying to understand. "How? Where?" Harold sighed and leaned back in his chair. "She worked for my family. Many years ago, when I was still young. She was bright, strong. Too good for the life she had. We were close, closer than we should have been. But back then, a relationship between us wasn't accepted. Not in my world. Not in hers." Amara's throat tightened. "What happened to her?" "She left," he said, voice cracking. "Not because she wanted to, but because she was forced to. My parents sent her away. I tried to find her later, but by then it was too late. She had already disappeared into her own struggles. I looked for her for years. I never stopped." He opened a drawer and pulled out an old photo, her mother, younger, smiling, with Harold standing beside her. Amara stared at it, barely able to breathe. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "I wasn't sure at first," Harold admitted. "But when I saw you, I knew. You have her eyes. The same fire. I asked around your village quietly, learned what happened to her. And when I found out she had passed, and that you were all alone, I knew I had to do something." Amara swallowed hard. "So you married me because you felt guilty?" "No," he said gently. "I married you because I wanted to give you what she never had. A choice, a safe home. A chance. I thought maybe, in some way, I could make things right. Not with money, but with care, with truth." It was a lot to take in. Her mind spun with 100 questions, but her heart felt something else. A strange, unexpected calm. The anger she thought she'd feel didn't come. Instead, she saw the old man in front of her not as some mysterious stranger, but as someone deeply flawed, deeply human, like herself. The next few days were quiet. They sat together more, talked longer. Harold shared stories of her mother, how she loved to sing while doing laundry, how she used to sneak extra food to stray animals, how she once dared to tell off his father for speaking rudely. Amara listened, holding on to every word like a treasure. For the first time, the silence in the house felt warm, not cold. Harold wasn't perfect. He had made choices back then that caused pain. But he also spent decades trying to repair what was broken. He wasn't trying to replace her mother or rewrite the past. He was simply offering her a better future, the one her mother might have dreamed for her. In time, their relationship shifted. Amara began to study, something she had never been able to afford before. Harold supported her fully, encouraging her to dream beyond what she thought possible. She started volunteering at a local center for girls from poor communities, girls just like her, sharing her story, offering hope. People still whispered, especially when they saw the two of them together. But Amara no longer cared. Let them whisper. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know the journey. They didn't know the weight of what love, real, imperfect, unexpected love, could look like. A year later, Harold's health began to fade. Slowly at first, then quickly. Amara stayed by his side, just as he had once stayed by hers. On his last night, he held her hand and smiled. You made everything worth it, he said softly. I hope I gave you enough to believe in yourself. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she nodded. You gave me more than that. You gave me a second chance. After his passing, Amara continued the work they started together. She opened a foundation in her mother's name, a safe space for young women from underprivileged backgrounds to learn, grow, and dream. She used what Harold left her not to live in comfort, but to lift others as she had been lifted. She never saw herself as a widow, or a charity case, or even a girl who married an old man for a better life. She saw herself as a survivor, as someone who turned pain into purpose, someone who took a strange, twisted path and made it mean something. Looking back, she often thought about that necklace. How something so small could carry so much history, so much love, so much truth. And how, in the end, it wasn't about what Harold gave her. It was about what she discovered, about her mother, about the past, and most importantly, about herself. Sometimes life brings people together for reasons we can't explain. And sometimes healing comes from the most unexpected places. For Amara, it came from a 70-year-old man with a quiet voice.